Devlin, Untamed.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
The Platform.
It's only sport. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. Welcome to the podcast, people. The highlights of our daily radio show on the Platform, the only independent sports radio program every single day in New Zealand. More on the Springboks All Blacks test this weekend in Johannesburg. The big build-up continues. Former box skipper Bobby Skinstad was on the show and on your podcast. Auckland FC have unveiled their unofficial/official anthem that the players are going to walk out to when the A-League campaign starts. We played that song this afternoon, feature a little snippet of it for you on the podcast. NPC Rugby tonight. Is this comp still not fit for purpose? As CEO of New Zealand Rugby, Mark Robinson, said this time last year. Ken Laban was on the program. What he's seen so far, why he likes the comp, and why he thinks it has to survive for the sake of New Zealand Rugby. The US Open, again, another day, another Dave Worsley report from New York, New York. Miles Davis on the program, the BTE, the Brendan Telfer Experience, and Brendan also revisiting his comments and his thoughts on how the Warriors season would unfold before the first ball was kicked in anger. The man is a soothsayer. We begin the show the same way every single day, though, which is tablets in hand. I say, gather my flock. It is time for a sermon. Believe that we can beat the Springboks. Let's go to the mountaintop.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Yes, we can beat the Springboks this Sunday. Believe, my children. Yes, we can. Of course we can. These are not supermen that we are playing. Their side is not unbeatable. Yes, they're formidable. But that doesn't mean they aren't conquerable. Come on, people. We're the All Blacks. Johnson out. We're the All Blacks, the winningest team ever in the history of world rugby. So forget all this, the Springbok bogeyman BS. They've already lost since the World Cup. They lost this year to Ireland. So the blueprint for beating the world champions is in front of us. 80 minutes in Durban. Ireland won that match scoring just one try. South Africa didn't cross the try line at all. They're 24 points, all from Pollard's boot. The first test run 27-20 by the Boks was 2 tries apiece. So Ireland figured out in a week how to stop that attempted forward dominance. They didn't concede to that fearsome rolling maul, although they did do with the penalty try in the first test at Pretoria. 14 members of the 23 that won in Joburg in 2022, that was the test that supposedly saved Ian Foster's job, are still there. Of those, Lomax, Scott Barrett, Savia, Kane, Clark, Rico, Jordan, Geordie, Bowden, Barrett, Cody Taylor, Newell, Vai are all likely to be named again for Sunday. So these guys have been there and they have done that. Look, all I'm saying is it's important not to be freaked out by this match, not to shy away from it, not to think that these guys are invincible. The last time we met, we lost 12-11 in the Rugby World Cup final as well. You know, in Paris, we played 55 minutes of that match with 14 men. We outscored them 8-3 in those 55 minutes. We can win in Johannesburg. Yes, it is a massive and daunting task, but no, it is also not an impossible ask.
Devlin.
What do you want? We want information. Information. You won't get it.
The Platform.
Lachlan, sports news headlines. What have we got?
A lot of rugby going on. A lot of rugby floating around. I'll start off with the Springboks team that has been named. Coach Rassie Erasmus naming back row Peter Steph du Toit at lock in place of the injured Eben Etzebeth. This, of course, for Sunday morning's test against the All Blacks at Ellis Park in Johannesburg. But Coach Erasmus has left the door open for Etzebeth to still play, saying he may miraculously recover. And the doctor said there was some science behind that and not just the will to play for the big occasion like the All Blacks. Okay.
They pulled the same stunt it took us last year, Lachlan. Okay, and they've done it regularly where he's injured and this guy plays because they got Pollard on the bench, but I reckon he'll actually start. I wouldn't be surprised if he does.
Australian Dr. Brett Robinson has confirmed he will contest the election for the position of World Rugby Chair and bid to replace the outgoing Sir Bill Beaumont in November. There's a story on the Herald saying that Liam McDonald's sudden departure from the All Blacks coaching staff is the latest hit to hit New Zealand rugby's coffers from undisclosed payouts in recent years. The Herald understands that McDonald was contracted as Robertson's All Blacks assistant for 4 years through to 2027. In terms of the figure, the salaries of All Blacks assistants differ depending on experience and responsibilities, but some are believed to range between $500,000 and $700,000 per year. This is a big article, very wordy. Go on to the Herald website to have a read of it, just talking about how much money NZR are going to be paying Liam McDonald out from his contract. In Formula One, this has been talked about all week, pretty much, especially on this show. Williams Racing has replaced its driver Logan Sargent with Franco Colapinto for the remainder of the F1 season. Some football transfers. Liverpool have agreed to sign Georgia goalkeeper Georgi Mamadashvili from Valencia in a deal worth up to £29 million. But the goalkeeper will remain with Valencia on loan and join Liverpool from the start of next season. Manchester United have held exploratory talks over a deal to sign Raheem Sterling from Chelsea. Arsenal have completed the signing of Spanish midfielder Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad for a fee that could reach up to £31.6 million. A lot of money being thrown around in the last few days of the transfer window. And the US Tennis Open, of course, is going on. In terms of some of the big winners, Carlos Alcaraz is playing right now. Daniel Medvedev won, Alex de Minaur won, Yannick Sinner won. No major results, major upsets at this stage. Karen Khachanov did lose. I quite like Khachanov. In terms of the women's singles draw, Emma Raducanu playing right now, as is Jasmine Paolini. Leila Fernandez knocked out. That's a bit of a surprise. Elena Rybakina winning, and Naomi Osaka winning as well. That's what's making news, Martin.
Devlin.
Oh my goodness me!
The platform.
Springboks team named All Blacks tomorrow about 5 o'clock New Zealand time. One or two asterisks beside that Springboks side because we actually don't know whether Esterbet is going to play or whether Andre Pollard will start on the bench or he'll be named at first five. Rassie Erasmus still got a couple of little tricks up his sleeve, you would think. Bob Skinstad played 10 years for the Boks. He captained them as well 42 times, wore the jersey, 12 as the skipper, played in the World Cup in 2007 in the semi-final, on the bench for the final though. He joined us today with his thoughts on what is just going to be such an epic encounter on the high veld. We're all looking to this weekend. I mean, we'll be talking about it all week, building up to this, the first of two tests. It's just going to be excellent.
It's going to be brilliant. I can't wait. I mean, I think South Africa are. I read something this morning. One of the South African newspapers said they could have sold 260,000 tickets to the Cape Town test if they were able to fulfill all of the demand. So, as you can imagine, we're just as excited as you guys are.
So, just on what we've seen so far this season. Obviously, the Springboks thrashing Australia, doing the same to Portugal. I go back to the Ireland series and think, okay, more of what we're going to see on the weekend, we can probably glean from those two tests. You agree?
Yeah, I think the bulk of it you could probably glean from those two tests. I think the Australian games and particularly the Portugal game were opportunities to blood sort of new, younger players into the squad environment. But I would imagine we're not going to stray too far from what's worked in the past. I think you guys have unpicked us a few times in the past, and we've been able to overpower. And it's a question of who brings out the better performance on the day. We've got amazing quality teams from both countries. And it's just whether South Africa can bring out the same kind of quality performance that they did in the World Cup, because they know they're up against their old foe, their greatest opponent. And despite being at home, everybody would hold huge respect for everything that New Zealand can do on the field.
Yeah, before we get into where the All Blacks are sitting at the moment, so what has impressed you the most so far about what you've seen from the Springboks? I'll just throw you a couple. The innovation has been not only. I don't think the word surprise is actually a good word to use, but it's just been something that we don't normally see from a Springbok side. But then Rassie Erasmus has this brain and he tries different things, and just seeing some of the, especially the attacking plans against Australia, the attacking from deep, the line-out variations, just, different people being used in the back line, all that, and the combination of so many players. I think that's what has both impressed us and also freaked us out a little bit over here going, wow, look at the potential and look at the depth in this squad.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's impressed us as Springbok fans, and I would imagine rugby fans around the world would have enjoyed that. But at the same time, you got to say it's been building for a while. You know, Erasmus he's a canny, wily individual. He defers a lot of the pressure off the team onto himself. So just to survive in that environment is good. But then when you see these innovations and the things that he do, I mean, I've got so much respect for what he's done as a coach and how he's been able to hold his line and deliver on what he wants to do for the team. That's positive. And then at the same time, he knows he needs to do it. You know, this is not an unambitious man. You know, he wants to do it for a long time, and he can't do it with the same playing personnel forever. So he has to blood young bucks. He's got to get some new players into new positions, and he's making a real effort to do that. And I think that's so evident to all of us. I mean, perhaps too evident in their loss in the final minutes against Ireland. You know, the number one side in the world against number two is a big clash. I get that, but there were players on the field there who could have made better decisions, and Erasmus has said so. And I think, you know, what he's trying to say is, I'm trying to show you guys we want to be able to have the best players making the best decisions at the right times.
Is that the way to beat the Springboks, the way that Ireland attacked and the way that Ireland played? Or do you think as far as the All Blacks are concerned, we've got to stick to our own DNA and do what we do best?
Well, I think the All Blacks DNA is fantastic. I think it's a combination of physical rugby, running rugby, try-scoring rugby, but an absolute sort of front foot mentality. You know, not a backward step. You do your lineouts well, you do your scrums well, you do anything to do with a set piece and controlling your own possession well, but then you're able to react as well. And I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to build on that. I mean, you know, New Zealand are the most decorated side in terms of wins in the history of the game, and we see them as our greatest rival, and hopefully that's shared. But we don't want to stand on our laurels. We were lucky enough to have won the most recent World Cup. It doesn't make us any better than our last game. And I think Erasmus's position on that is, you know, we need to work out what New Zealand are going to bring this weekend, and then we need to regather and work out what they're going to bring next weekend. And it's an ongoing saga. So I think New Zealand rugby, and you said, you know, as a product, is in fine fettle. I think it's, you know, I've got the utmost respect for the coaching staff, and we can go into that. But a good New Zealand team is good enough to beat the Springboks. We know that. You know, that's where this beautiful sort of challenge comes now. Is it good enough to meet the Springboks at 50% or 60% or 70% or 80 or 100%, and vice versa? And that's why it's becoming so mouthwatering. Yeah,
just what do you do like about where the All Blacks are headed then? I just want to touch base on that, because you said, you got a lot of admiration for what Scott Robertson as coach, this particular bunch of players.
Look, I do. I really do. I mean, I think you guys are incredibly talented with an amazing array of quality players. I also think you've got a number of high quality coaches in you know, not only the attack area but defense as well, scrum area. I think Scott Robertson is a fantastic appointment. I've made no bones over the years about my love for his rugby philosophy. I mean, we played against each other as Colts for our countries, and then had some games against each other as full internationals. And my relationship with him has never changed since the first beer that we had as 20-year-olds, and that is, you know, rugby people, friendship. He's come out to Cape Town a few times. He's played in my tournament in Cape Town, in the Cape Town Tens. He's coached. the juniors, and I've always thought to myself, that guy is going to be a great All Blacks coach, and I know he will. These days, everybody wants success yesterday or yesterday morning if he started this afternoon. I don't think that's what the kind of pressure they should be putting on Razor and his team. I think what they should be saying is, where do we need to go to be the All Blacks that we know we can be, and I'm 100% certain that that's his focus. He's a great man manager and a good player manager, and the players who play in and around his coaching staff will be better players and better people, and that's good for rugby. So it makes me happy. I still want to beat him. I still want us to beat him. I still want us to beat you guys. I still want the rivalry to be as big and good and rough and intense and nuanced as it is, but I have the utmost respect for him.
To hear the full interview, download the platform at the App Store. Via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to the whole show and all of the interviews in full.
We need to talk.
Your favourite game.
We need to talk.
What is more chance of happening, Lachlan? I'll give you a couple of options and you tell me out of the two what has more chance of happening. Where the hell has it gone? Here we go.
We're off to a flying start.
We are. The All Blacks do beat the Springboks, Ellis Park and Joburg. Or the bunker will not make any more mistakes in the NRL from now till the end of the season. What is more chance of happening?
Was it Springboks beat All Blacks? Or
All Blacks beat Springboks.
All Blacks beat Springboks.
Absolutely. Okay, so we just accept the fact that now it's unacceptable and it's substantial errors and they're going to happen every week.
Yes.
Well, I don't think we should accept that. Should we? I don't know what the answer is. The answer is to get humans that are infallible, that don't make mistakes, that get every decision right. And a game that comes down to judgment calls, doesn't it? It comes down to it's your eyes looking at something and deciding in a split second.
I think it's so easy for us as outsiders to say this. The same way that, for example, it's really easy for someone who, say, isn't a radio host to maybe think of really interesting questions for an interview. Point is, when you're doing these jobs, you're in a structure or you learn a certain framework of how to do the job. Okay, I've got to think about this, I've got to think about this, I've got to do that, I've got to do that, I've got to do that. When you're so set in stone of that structure, it's so easy to miss logical things, right?
I agree with you. That's how they missed the first one against the Bulldogs with Harris Tavita, why it was called unacceptable, because he wasn't looking for what it was we were looking at.
Martin? It was Salmon on Tomato Martin.
Oh, was it on?
I think it was on Tomato.
Was it on him? Sorry.
But yeah, so they were looking at a certain element of it. So they were like, "Oh, geez, we didn't even think about the fact that it's actually a late hit."
That's it.
That's the root of all the issues. I think with the bunker is that these referees or these officials, if you're sitting in the bunker, you're on the field, are forced into a situation where you've got to think about so much that you kind of forget about what's the one thing that's obviously standing out.
That's right. Yeah, totally agree.
So I feel for them. I think it's the fault of the rules. I think it's the fault of the bosses of the referees. But I think it's the fault of the sport.
I would also like to see these guys be able to be interviewed afterwards, because there'd be nothing better than the guy to stand up and say, "Look, I'm sorry, I made a bloody mistake. I got that one wrong," and you'd have to say, "Okay, well that's okay. You're a human being. You're allowed to." What is more chance of happening? The All Blacks beat the Springboks on Sunday, or Jared Waerea-Hargreaves will never get suspended again in any game of rugby league that he plays.
Well, he's retiring after this year.
No, he's going to England.
Is he? I thought he was retiring.
England.
Oh, okay. No, in that case, the All Blacks are beating the Springboks.
That's an easy one, isn't it? Yeah. What is more chance of happening? That happens. The All Blacks do beat the Springboks. Or the Warriors, I asked you this before, beat Cronulla in their last game of the season.
No,
just to end the season on a high. No, just as a win, Lachlan, because the
All Blacks beat the Springboks.
They'd gain momentum going into next year. The Warriors will do it for their fans.
I actually cannot wait until the season is over for the Warriors, because I don't have to hear the BS from the... I like a lot of the fans, by the way. Just quickly, I like a lot of the fans. I really do, because a lot of them are really good friends of mine. But I hate the crew of fans. One, who are so absurdly, ridiculously one-eyed that they really nastily criticised you pre-season, because I copped this, suggesting, the Warriors might struggle to make the 8. and also the ones who are all on the wagon now. You know, all these people putting stories on their Instagram, photos up saying, up the Wars, go the Wars, mad game. Like, I went to school with you. You don't even like sport, let alone the NRL, let
So
alone
true.
the Warriors.
So true.
But
True.
You pee off. Stop it.
All right.
Get out of here.
I get it. On the text line 5050, Martin, the NRL need to hire Jesus to ref. He's perfect.
He would still get crucified for some
Well,
of his
I was just going to
decisions.
say, exactly right.
That's a
What
good-
is
that's a
more
good
chance
one. Give me
of
the funny
happening?
drama. Come on. There we go.
The All Blacks beat the Box or Arsenal. It's our year. Win the EP.
No, the All Blacks.
All Blacks win the See, this is the great thing is you've now said 3 or 4 times in a row that the All Blacks are beating the Springboks.
Because you're giving me a situation. You're doing this on purpose, okay? You're
How can I-
manufacturing
how
the
can I-
situation.
I can't, I'm just-
because you wrote the questions.
What is more chance of happening? The All Blacks do get up and do win against the world champions in their backyard, or someone other than Lydia Ko or Lisa Carrington wins the Supreme Hellberg Award?
Hamish Kerr could win it. He really could.
He's not going to beat Lydia Ko for it, mate.
Why not?
I'm going, well,
Hold
ask
up.
Telfer about it next. Telf's better-
He's achieved something
Sure, I
no
know.
Kiwi's
Telf's
ever
better
done.
judge. Telf knows how
and
to
he's
judge.
done it in an
Okay.
event
All
that
right.
is so
You're just trying not to
widely
say it again
competed
for the
in.
5th time in a row.
No, I'm not. I'm being the devil's advocate. I'm saying that let's not forget what Hamish Kerr did was absolutely incredible.
It was.
And I do actually
was.
like what Telf says around that when it's an Olympic year, we should place importance on that. If someone sits there and says, oh, canoe sprint doesn't really matter as much as golf and whatnot, that's fair. But also, it's the Olympic Games.
It's the Olympic Games, mate.
It happens every 4 years.
it.
It's the biggest congregation of sporting excellence in the world.
Well, he's by far and away the most outstanding New Zealand sportsman this year. There's no question
Without a doubt.
Without a
and
word.
I actually think there's something to be said for him achieving something that no one in New Zealand has done before versus 2 spectacular women, by the way, but they've achieved something that they've both done before.
Next! What is more chance of happening? We spring a surprise on the Springboks and we win that game. Or Liam Lawson does get a drive in F1 by the end of the year because
No,
the New
that's
Zealand
just-
media are just pushing for it so hard, Lachlan.
Every time someone opens, it's like Stephen Adams every time he played a game in the NBA.
God, every time he threw a
For the
pass,
first-
Television One would lead with it in their sports news.
Yeah. Stephen Adams.
Stephen
scored
Adams,
two
geez,
points.
I tell you what, they got dicked by 35, but Stephen Adams did a rebound.
Obviously, there's more chance that
Of?
the All Blacks beat
Sorry?
the Springboks.
The what?
Since when are you the biggest All Blacks cheerleader?
Come on, man. I just want us to win. They're my team. Auckland FC got a song for the players to walk out to. First game kickoff, Mount Smart, new A-League campaign. You got to have a theme tune, don't you? Football is. It's all about singing and clapping and chanting and so forth. Well, last night at the Chamberlain Pub in Auckland, a song called Blue Smoke, which has got a real history in terms of New Zealand music recording. It was actually the very first produced record in this country, and that's from composition to processing. Version of it has been made for Auckland AFC, and apparently the club is au fait. They have welcomed it and said, yep, this will be it. Blue Smoke. Have a little listen.
And as I sailed away with a longing to stay, I promised to be true and to love only you. Blue smoke.
Miles Davis joined us to talk about that and blah, 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 a whole lot of other stuff as well. It also sounds a little bit to me like that Sailing Away, America's Cup song in 87. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it was originally sung by Pixie Williams as well, although I believe Dean Martin and a few others have done versions of it. When I first heard it, it reminded me of George Napier's Beneath the Mouldy Moon, which I believe was released in 1936, if we're going to start chucking stats about Mr. Statman.
Go on.
But I don't know. I mean, will it catch on? Will the lyrics do? I really don't know. But who am I to knock old songs? West Ham have been singing "I'm Forever Blowing Bubbles" since the 1920s. So maybe it will catch on. But I can already think, if they get done or when they play Wellington, you can stick your blue smoke up.
That's what I'm just.
Like West Ham stick to Chelsea about their blue flag. You can stick your flag up wherever.
I want to talk about Lydia Co in a second. Box versus the All Blacks this weekend. Acknowledge the fact this is the heavyweight World Rugby Championship of the world, the 2 best teams in the world.
Well, aren't Argentina one of those?
Oh, hang on a second. Small blip.
No, they are. No, I mean, but definitely, in modern terms and in historical terms, definitely, it's always a clash that no matter what the form has been of the sides, it's a clash that everyone looks forward to. If you're a rugby fan, you've got to be looking forward to it. The one bit sort of disappointment I think this time is the number of injuries to key players, especially on that South African side. I don't know if old Razzie's taken the Mickey out of us into saying that Etzebeth's, I don't know if he's out, he might be in, he might be on the bench, and he's doing his little game, because that guy is an absolute beast. I mean, he follows along in the lines of Matfield and Botha, but to be honest, I think he's more athletic than either of those two guys. I think he offers even a bit more around the park than, in open play than they do. So I think he's a massive loss if he's not playing. And they've lost another couple of Snyman, I think's out, and Mostert. So they're pretty weak on that front. And that might give the All Blacks a bit of a chance. I think Scott Barrett's back in, isn't he? So that could give them a bit of an edge there, perhaps. But, I mean, the South African side look the business, don't they? I don't think you're going to win two over there, and you'll be lucky to win one.
Oh, yeah. I'd take a 1-1 split any day of the week, mate. Same as Ireland got when they were there as well. Lydia Ko, and obviously the big debate about whether or not it's her or Lisa Carrington for the Supreme Hellberg. I mean, it's one of those stupid debates, really, because it don't really matter. I mean, what the achievements of these two women are, it's just extraordinary. Not forgetting at least Andrews, obviously, of course, but Lydia Ko to win the gold medal in Paris, mate, and then to play those two shots, especially 17 and 18. I don't know whether you've watched them or not, watched them back or not, but what a remarkable performance. The other thing I really like about it is she just seems such a cool person, and that it hasn't changed her. She's won $20 million, mate. I mean, she's at the very pinnacle of world golf. And yet we had a guy on the other day who was saying that his kids yelled out during the third round on the 16th tee, "Go Lydia." She stops after a swing, mate, gets two golf balls out, 6 and 7-year-olds, signs them and gives them to the kids. Amazing.
Yeah, I know. To be honest, though, I think she's changed, hasn't she? She's matured. Because she used to be quite prickly when she was younger. And you remember she'd sack a coach every 5
minutes, yeah.
Because it was never her fault, it was their fault. But she's definitely matured. And you can see it in the way that she played, because she was rampant when she was like 16 and upwards for a few years, topped the charts. Then she sort of went off the boil a little bit. But now she's really back in the groove. And every time she goes out there, she's looking likely that she's going to be there or thereabouts. And I think it's fantastic, especially, she's got Korean parentage or whatever, but she's a Kiwi girl. Used to play just up the road from where I lived on the shore there.
Yes, she did.
Was her home club. And to be honest about the Hellbergs, I'll tell you, if I was there, I'd say, Lisa, you can have the Hellberg. I'll keep the 20 million.
The Tight Five.
5 separate sporting topics, roughly a minute or so on each. When this happens, bada-ding, we move on to the next topic. The Breakers coaching group, all formalised, announced no New Zealanders in that coaching lineup and 2 players returning from last season. There's only 2 Kiwis on the roster. Does that matter? Canterbury Hawks Bay tonight, NPC. Do you care, Lachlan? Do you care about the NPC? 25th of August last year, people. So it was this week last year we played South Africa at Twickenham. And that's the biggest score line, if I can say that correctly, defeat the All Blacks have ever had. That's the most we've ever been beaten by, is probably a better way of saying it. How do you feel, Lachlan, today before we go to Joburg? Is there a more meaningless NRL match this weekend than the Warriors versus Cronulla? You go through the fixture list. I don't want to harp on about how awful the Warriors season has, but somebody has to, because otherwise it's all just going to get lost in a big love fest for Sean Johnson, and the reality of the season is going to get forgotten. And the Melbourne Storm, speaking of things NRL, say they've earned the right to rest players. They're resting 10 this weekend versus North Queensland, and this is probably a good sign ahead of the following weekend when they play your Brisbane. Also, we can talk about that US Open tennis match, 5 hours 35. Let's start with that, Lachlan. Question for you. If you're a spectator, you're going to sit there and actually endure 5 hours 35. At what stage are you giving up on that? Or you're going to watch the whole match. If you are related to one of those players, you're going to stay and watch it. If you are at the US Open, as Dave Wesley said to us, and you're wandering around court, and you're thinking, okay, what match am I going to watch? And you stumble across that and it's in the 4th set or the 5th set or something like that, you'd probably stay and watch it.
Yeah.
Seriously.
That's what I would do.
Are you going to sit there and watch 5 hours 35 of anyone playing tennis if it isn't a guy called Roger or Rafa or Novak?
No, but I can't imagine the early stages of the tournament. And look, I haven't been to a tennis. I haven't actually been to it. Well, I sort of went to the ASB Tennis Classic this year, but
Not quite a Grand Slam.
not quite a Grand Slam. Bit of work to do there. No, I can't. Well, when you get tickets, do you get tickets to a stand? Like you can only sit in one seat in a stadium, or are they general admission tickets? So
Well, okay, it depends.
How does it work?
Depends what stand and what stadium, because as you know, when we went to Roland Garros last year, there are different parts of the Roland Garros. The number
There's
one
multiple courts. Yeah,
your number one court, you buy a ticket to that. You can't buy a ticket to the outlying courts and then get into that court.
No, but you can. I would guess that you can get a ticket to a one that would cover all courts, so you can hop around. That would be more expensive.
Or you could just get a into the concourse ticket. Okay, in which case, if you can spare a seat, you can squeeze into the outer courts.
Now, do you, like, for example, if you get a ticket to centre court at one of these Grand Slams, do you get a ticket to a seat, or is
allocated
it
seat at a centre court? Yep.
That would be expensive. Well, it depends what kind of ticket you got. Like, if I went to a Grand Slam, I'd hop around. I wouldn't, especially in the early stages when the big players are cruising through the
Well, that's the
early
greatest thing
rounds.
about a Grand Slam, especially if you go to the Aussie Open. You can get to see the best players in the world practicing on the outlying courts and even playing, because not everyone, not Sinner, Alcaraz, Novak, not all of these guys can all have their matches all on Arthur Ashe. So some of them are playing on Louis Armstrong, some of them are playing on the other court. So there's your opportunity to see the best player in the world play. Might not be against the other best player in the world.
If you've got, if money's no issue and you've got time in your hands as well, I would spend the first couple of days jumping around every court and have a look at some players.
Do you
for
have
example,
the patience as a young person to sit there for 5 hours?
Well,
30?
I love my sport, yes, but I wouldn't spend all 5.5 hours, 6 hours
Could you
at one
sit there
match.
for 5 hours 35
Could you?
and not look at your phone?
No, probably not.
No.
Could you?
No, of course I couldn't,
No.
mate, because I'm
Mate,
an
no
addict
one
to it
could.
like everyone else.
Even
these
the
days.
elderly
It's
people in
pathetic,
their
mate.
80s.
I know, it's just pathetic. I hate what it's done
They
to
would
me.
need their phones as well. But I mean, like, because you'd want to keep track of scores at other matches. You might
you're
want to
just
look at.
replying to TikTok texts and Instagram dicks, aren't
There's
you? I mean,
actually
that's the whole
nothing
thing.
wrong,
That's
you know,
what
as
the
long
world
as
is these days, mate.
your
Every-
usage is actually all right. There's nothing wrong with being on your phone. The issue is when you're watching TikToks, when you're doing some Tindering inside the stadium, you're wondering, you're dropping your pin, seeing what girls are nearby, or boys, depending on what team you bat for. If you just check at other sports scores, like what if the Commanders are playing?
Okay, I'm not.
Well, you wouldn't keep score anyway because they'd be losing, and you know that.
Do you like the Blue Smoke song? Do you think it's the song that should be played as the Auckland AFC team walks out there at Mount Smart?
I think it's a nice song. I think it would be better suited to at the end of the game when the
Same.
players are circling around the stands, clapping, thanking the fans for turning up.
Yeah, I
I
think
just don't know if it's like the Penrith Panthers, for example. I mean, they're different sports, but the Penrith Panthers in the NRL play Hell's Bells by AC/DC.
Well, that's a hell of a song. Come on. I mean, that's what this is what I think you want. I just think that you want something that revs the crowd up a little
like
bit
Virginia Tech and college football play Enter Sandman. Like you want a song that gets the crowd into it. I mean,
I can understand.
Some football clubs, particularly in England, have softer songs. Like when you think about it, is it Walk On or You Never Walk Alone?
You'll Never Walk Alone. See, that's a softer kind of song. So is Blue Moon for Man City. So as Miles pointed out, so is You'll Be Forever Blowing Bubbles. And I think United play Take Me Home Country Road or something like so.
Do you?
Well, it depends what part of the ground, whether it's the Swedish section or the Australian section or the Scottish section.
Australia speak English. Come on.
Canterbury Hawke's Bay tonight. Is the NPC fit for purpose?
Apparently not, but it's still going. This is the thing I love the most. Mark Robinson said that over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
Nothing's changed.
Well, the competition's still going.
Yeah.
So, that's the best bit that hasn't changed. At least it's still going. Ken Laban's going to talk more about this before the hour is up. No New Zealand coach in the Breakers coaching group. Does that matter?
Well, it depends. What's the goal of the Breakers?
2 New Zealand players on the roster. Does that matter? Again, the same answer.
It depends what the role of the Breakers is. Do the Breakers want to market themselves as a haven for Kiwi talent, both coaching and playing, and a mechanism for people to grow in the sport of basketball? Kiwis, that is. Well, then, if that's the case, this isn't good.
No, they're seriously failing. But I don't think that that's what they're about. I think they are a professional sporting franchise playing in an Australasian league, and really what their job is to win basketball games. That's what they're about, right? Same as the Warriors are meant to be winning NRL games. Same as the Phoenix and Auckland FC are meant to be winning A-League games. Same as if our netballers get back in there, it's about winning games. You know, this is not a developmental team. If it was, New Zealand basketball would own it, okay? And there would be pathways put in place, and that would be the purpose of it.
That's a very good point.
This is a professional sporting side. So I don't have a problem with it at all. This time last year, it was almost a week to the day. We went to Twickenham and got absolutely smashed by the Springboks prior to the World Cup. We were down to 13 at one stage, I think, in the first half, and they piled on all their points then, didn't they? So
the Twickenham test?
Yeah.
28-0 at one point.
Yeah, well, and we were down. Look, again, and I've asked you every day so far this week, do you feel better about it today? Do you think now when you look at that Springbok side, which we don't know whether it'll run out or not, but anyway, do you think more today than you did yesterday that we have got a hell of a chance of winning this game?
No, I'm about the same as I was yesterday and the day before.
Okay, well, you glass half full, glass half empty.
Glass half empty.
Glass
I've been glass half empty all week.
Okay,
what are you?
How do we get you over the line to glass half full?
What are you? Are you glass half full?
I'm starting
empty?
to go glass half full, Lachlan.
Based on what?
Based on the fact that I want us to win.
I want us to win too.
I'm so pathetic. I really am. I don't want to get up at 3 a.m. and get bums pinked by those guys.
I tell you what, actually both of us are probably going to do this, going to get up successive mornings at 3 a.m.
Yeah, because Liverpool, Man United.
On Monday.
Yeah, Monday morning after that.
Look, I can be glass half full. Tell you what, if we win, it'll be spectacular. I'll be jumping up and down.
Well, that's why you've got to get up at 3 a.m. to do it. Final question then for you, and here we go. Is there a more meaningless match of NRL this weekend than the Cronulla Sharks playing the New Zealand Warriors? And I'll give you the fixture list and you tell me what's more meaningless out of all of these games. Cowboys Storm has something on it. The Storm are resting players. Cowboys need a win because they're battling for 5th and 6th, right, to get a home playoff match. So that's meaningful. Bulldogs Sea Eagles.
Very meaningful.
Panthers Rabbitohs.
Meaningful.
Why?
Well, because if the Panthers lose and the Dogs win, the Panthers fall out of the top 4.
There you go. Eels Dragons.
Dragons need a win to keep control of 8th spot. And the Eels don't want to get the spoon.
Dolphins Broncos.
Okay, self-explanatory.
Okay,
both teams pushing for the 8.
Knights Titans.
Knights pushing for the 8.
Okay. Roosters Raiders.
Roosters looking to, I guess, Raiders pushing for the top 8, actually. I keep forgetting about them. And the Roosters looking to hang on to 2nd spot. I would say, however, go back a little bit, Panthers Rabbitohs is about the same. Panthers Rabbitohs and Sharks Warriors is about the same because you've got a team that is pushing for a spot to maintain a spot in the top 4, and then you've got one team that has nothing to play for. So they are equally as meaningless, but equally as meaningful.
Do you agree with the Melbourne Storm, finally, when they say they have, quote, earned the right to rest players? They have dropped 10 for this match against the Cowboys.
Yes.
10 starters for it.
Yeah, absolutely. They've been far and away the best team this regular season. There's a moment there where they were only about 2 points ahead of Penrith, and then they had that game against Penrith in Penrith. And sort of since that moment, they've recontrolled a top spot. Yeah, of course they do. But it's always been something that's happened in the NRL. You know, I mean, there was a big deal made about it last year because you had Brisbane playing Melbourne in the last round. You had Penrith playing someone. There's all this talk of Brisbane going to rest players because if they lose to Melbourne, they'll then play Melbourne the next week, or they'll play the Warriors instead, or do they actually want to get the minor premiership? Every year it happens. You know, teams who have locked-in finals spots or have locked-in top 4 spots or can't really move anywhere, they rest players because they want to save them for the finals. It's nothing new.
The NPC is not fit for purpose. I didn't say that. Listen to Mark Robinson, the CEO of New Zealand Rugby. A year ago, he said it. Well, the NPC has kicked off. Most teams have played 3, if not 4 games. There's another match on tonight. That is Canterbury hosting Hawke's Bay. There's going to be a crackerjack match in a couple of weeks when Hawke's Bay have that Ranfurly Shield match against Tasman. Whaono Ken Laban calls and commentates a hell of a lot of NPC rugby. He was on the show today just to walk us through what he's seen so far and why he thinks it is just so vital that this competition maintains in New Zealand rugby.
A couple of encouraging signs that go against that not fit for purpose, which gives us a little bit of, I don't know whether hope might be too big a word, Marty, but I think, did I read 7713 was the crowd for Southland, Otago and Invercargill. Nobody expected that, nor did nor did many people other than staunch Southland supporters expect that result from Southland, who looked pretty good so far in the NPC. And last year, I thought that the two best performing provinces were Taranaki and Hawke's Bay, and I was so happy that they both played in the final, and one's got the NPC title and the other's got the Ranfurly Shield, because those two provinces were easily the most supported provinces. So not fit for purpose in the bigger, the so-called bigger provinces where the crowds have been ordinary and the performances have been inconsistent. But what it says about Southland, Hawke's Bay, Taranaki, I think gives us some hope in the fact that there's still some passion there and still some interest, and of course, you know, those that have watched a lot of First 15 rugby over the years will know that there's still support for the game at the grassroots level. So I think we need to take the debate away from the so-called elite level of the game, and if they want to build it, rebuild it, and make it fit for purpose, then the grassroots is where it's got to happen, both in terms of support for the provincial game and support for, I believe we need to bring back junior representative tournaments.
Well said. I'm sitting here nodding my head to all of that, and it does go to show that there, you know, huge parts of the country that are still well interested in this. And again, you know, I will raise that point. You know, when they're talking about completely revamping the rugby union board, to think that there aren't brains, acumen, and really good people working in the provinces at the moment that shouldn't be on that board is just absolute bloody nonsense, mate.
No, exactly. Well, of course, the proof's in the pudding, as they say. You know, sorry to sound corny, mate, but, you know, the crowds at Taranaki, Hawke's Bay and opening game at Southland this year, that's an indication of where we need to go as a team. Now, we need every province to be able to replicate that in every level of the game, to be like that, because that's what it used to be like in the old days. And I don't know if you've seen any of the images coming out of the Kelston St. Kit's First 15 final. Well, that was amazing. That passionate, no professional players, you know, just you know, authentic, as they say, pure part of our game at the amateur level, and a traditional, you know, between colleges that have been around for years and have got that status and have got that legacy. You know, there's no flash Harry marketing or branding or, you know, fancy footwork or any of that sort of stuff. It was just, you know, two youth teams going out in front of a packed house with a great atmosphere. So, you know, our population's actually got bigger, but our participation and attendance of the games have got less. So, you know, who's to blame for that? In my view, we blame the people that get paid to grow it. So if you're getting a salary to grow the game, grow it, bro.
For Ono, Ken Laban is with us. MPC, we are talking. There's a crackerjack match coming up, which is Hawke's Bay hosting that Shield Challenge against the Tasman side that remain unbeaten too. It leads me to the next question, mate. Who is the best team that you're watching at the moment? Hawke's Bay are 3-0, Tasman are 3-0, Bay are plenty at top of the table. They've played 4. Wellington also 3-0. So just in terms of what you've seen right now.
Taranaki have been great. Just remember that Bay of Plenty team, they had what they call a storm week last week, which is 3 games in 7 days, and they went undefeated. So that was a tired Taranaki team, that Bay of Plenty team, that nearly got the result against Otago. That was a thrilling game. I was down there for that one as well. Only really decided in the last couple of minutes. That was fantastic. A fantastic game. So I think it's too early. It's too early to call. If you want a definitive answer, you'll have to ask someone smarter than me.
Well, what's gone wrong with Auckland? They're 0-3 at the moment. They lost to Canterbury on the weekend. Is this a disaster, or is this just a team that is just, we're going to just wait till they find their form?
It's a disaster. Mate, the size of the population, the players that they've got access to, the resources that they have. Start a season 0-3, given their given who they are and what they are and their legacy and history and multiple championships, is both a disaster and an embarrassment. And so we can talk and try and hide it till the cows come home, but as you point out, mate, 0-3 is 0-3. they lose one more, they're done. They're not going to make the playoffs. So they're in a big hole. So they need to come up with a plan, and they need to come up with an execution that's going to get it done for them. Otherwise, how embarrassing it is for the might of Auckland to be essentially out of the playoff race after a month.
The BTE happens every single Wednesday on the program, around about 3:30. Brendan joins us, courtesy of JK's World of Golf. At the start of the Warriors season, you see, he was the one person, the one commentator, the one sports broadcaster who refused to buy into the la-la, rah-rah, pom-pom cheerleading stuff and said it how he thought it would actually be. And remarkably, how close to what this season has been did Brendan get?
It's the eve, of course, of another NRL season. Well, it's, I suppose, officially underway. And we're hearing the same old cliches that are trotted out by all these experts. This is going to be the Warriors' year. The boys have got it sorted. Some great off-season signings. Coach has got them really fired up. The guys look really good. They look really good in pre-season matches.
Right.
They look fitter. They look fitter than they have for years. And 7 or 8 minutes later, how come we couldn't finish any higher than 13th? So I'm sort of caught in between two, the reality of history as opposed to this sort of kind of misplaced optimism of the immediate future.
Tell, if we put that out on social media and you got roundly abused from a whole lot of Warriors fans, what would he know? He's a has-been, he's dried up, get somebody else. Bang, you were 100% spot on, mate.
Yeah, well, you win some, you lose some. It's a terrible business to get into, isn't it, predicting sporting events. I don't know whether I told you this, but on another radio station a couple of weeks ago, a young enthusiastic sports doc tried to tell me, it was more than that, about a month ago, tried to tell me before the Olympic Games that New Zealand would probably win about 20 medals, and I was laughing my head off at him, said, mate, I can tell you from inside the New Zealand Olympic Committee, they are full of pessimism. Well, they're pessimistic about their medal chances, and they're not thinking anything like that figure. How many did they win? 20.
20,
So,
that's right, 10 goals, yeah.
So you win some, you lose some in this game, don't you?
Well, it's also, you got to stick your neck out, you got to stick your chin out, and you got to be big and brave about it, and you just got to cop the ones when it happens, and you got to actually applaud the ones when you get it right. But Telf, you were exactly right about the Warriors, mate, and, the good thing is that you actually said it, because the problem with the Warriors, a big problem I have now, is the media coverage is so rah-rah, pom-pom cheerleading, you can't get any truth. You said this last week, what this club needs is a thorough examination of its failure this year, but all we get is the Sean Johnson celebration and, let's move on, let's put it to bed, let's, that was only last, this is why the club to me goes nowhere.
Yeah, I think we can say, though, after 30 years now, 1995, close to 30 years anyway, that they've been in the NRL, some things aren't going to change. And they are disadvantaged, the Warriors. There's absolutely no question about it, by being the only team of, 17 in the competition that's outside of Australia. And although it's only a 2 or 3 hour trip, it's a whole day there and it's a whole day back, and there's all the other stuff that goes with going from one country to another these days because of security reasons. It's not like when it started in 1995, it was no different from going from Auckland to Christchurch.
You're exactly right.
On a plane.
That's right.
And so,
and you could smoke.
That is embedded into this sort of kind of the the DNA of this club. And they can't get really top players to come here. They get the odd one, as we know, and they bring the odd top New Zealand player back, but they don't ever seem to be able to quite play as well here. Roger Tuivasa-Sheckers, I suppose, is a more recent example. So they've made the final, twice in 30 years,
that's right.
And I think that's about their lot. I think about every 10 or 15 years they will have a very good season where all the stars are aligned, and they have a bit of luck, and the referees give them a few breaks, and bingo, they're going to have a good season, and the odd one will see them get into the final.
All right, so Tiger Woods today in 1994 won the US Amateur Championship 30 years ago. As you say, Brendan, he was 19, he was almost 20. Has he been the single most influential person ever to pick up a golf club?
I think he has. Contrary to what this American golf writer did last year, I can't even remember his name, and I've never heard of him. He did a thing online called the 10 Greatest Golfers of All Time, looking at all of these factors involved in what constitutes a great golfer. And he had Tiger at about number 6. He had people like Walter Hagen, Ben Hogan, Harry Vardon, and others ahead of him, which I found extraordinary. But in my opinion, he is the most influential golfer that is the sport has seen. He hasn't won as many majors as Jack Nicklaus, and that is a yardstick which most golfers agree on is a fairly accurate kind of portrayal of where you sit, in the Hall of Fame, as it were, and he's second to Jack Nicklaus. But he's done some other things that no other golfer has done. He's transformed the game dramatically because of the deeds that he did on the golf course in the first place. I mean, every half-decent golfer who plays the game professionally, and I include Ryan Fox and Lydia Ko in this, are making enormous sums of money because of Tiger Woods.
There you go.
This was the guy who was given $1 million check while he was still an amateur, even before he'd turned pro, even before he had hit one ball as a professional golfer. Nike, I think it was Nike, had given him $1 million because they could see that this guy was going to be a global superstar, a la a Michael Jordan of golf. And they wanted to get in early and wrap him up, nail him down, get a signature on a piece of paper. So they offered him $1 million. And that's unprecedented, and I'm pretty sure it hasn't happened since. And this is the kind of golfer that some people, even in those days, could see that he was going to become this global superstar, and he did. And so when you've paid that sort of money to a golfer, the things that you want him to do, of course, are to play a lot of golf tournaments. And so he did, and he had to because he had turned pro. And the crowds flocked to see this kid, and he didn't disappoint them. He was winning golf tournaments from about his third or fourth tournament. Got a hole-in-one in about his fifth tournament at that famous hole in Arizona where they go to for the waste management in the early part of the season. And so the television ratings went through the roof. The spectator numbers went through the roof, and that's never changed. If Tiger Woods was playing in a golf tournament next week, say, I don't know, regular tour event, the Nebraska Championship or something, the crowds would flock, even though he wouldn't make the cut anymore.
He is the one guy that does, doesn't he?
And so he's brought, not his own money, but he attracted an enormous amount of money into professional golf, particularly in America, but it rippled throughout the world. And every professional golfer who plays the game, you won't hear Ryan Fox or Lydia Ko or any of these golfers criticising Tiger Woods, and neither should they, because he single-handedly has improved their incomes enormously. No other golfer's done that. Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, Ben Hogan, they've all had their impact on the game. But then on top of that, he broke down the colour bar in golf. You know, up until Tiger Woods arrived on the scene, if you were a person of colour in America and you wanted to get into golf, the only option you had was to carry bags for a white club member at Augusta or somewhere. So he broke down the colour bar. He also became the first golfer, really, at elite level, to spend an enormous amount of time in the gym so he could hit the ball further. And now every golfer goes into the gym for that reason. So you look at all of these things he's done that no other golfer has done. Sure, Jack Nicklaus has a record that is slightly better than Tiger's, but
Tiger went global, though, Brendan. That's the whole thing. Tiger took that. He was the Michael Jordan. You're exactly right. There's hardly a person on the planet who didn't know who Tiger Woods was. And so
if you stopped, I don't know, if in some parts of the world, golf still is relatively, in parts of Africa, for example, in South America, golf is not too huge compared to, say, football or other sports, but they still know who Tiger Woods is.
That's our podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to listen to the entire show, 1 till 4, Monday to Friday, download the Platform app, and via Platform Plus, you can go back and listen to whatever shows over however many weeks at your leisure, at your listening pleasure. Platform Plus. First thing to do, though, is download the Platform app.
Devlin.
Unbelievable. Incredible.
The Platform.